Hello, everyone. I'm Zyla White, the Chairwoman of LSN KIDS, and today I'm going to be speaking with Dr. Risha Sancho on her development of K-12 Civil Leadership Initiative. Hi, Dr. Sancho. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me, Miss White.
Yes, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to start out with my first question. What inspired you to create the K-12 Civil Leadership Initiative?
The inspiration, I think, initially came from having a tumultuous background in the location where I was working. So I did a year in the School of Psychology within my doctoral program and then continued in education and put those pieces together. So K through 12 civil leadership is birthed from a desire to want to understand how to reduce prejudice because I was a person who actually experienced what I would call implicit prejudice that showed itself. And once it did, people didn't understand that it surfaced, and they definitely did not understand how to handle it. So that left me on the outskirts, floundering, trying to figure out what to do to best serve my family, some of my students who were also affected, and myself.
Thank you for that answer, Dr. Sancho. I have another question. Can you please explain what the K through 12 Civil Leadership Initiative is?
The K through 12 Civil Leadership Initiative is a construct, more of an ideology that also has a segment that is for training. It's like a training program. And what it was developed from was a understanding that community and educational institutions can work together if they have trust with one another to implement programs into the school systems that will allow students to receive culturally relevant pedagogy in a way that is purposeful, dynamic, and long lasting. So one portion of it is that, which I just explained, but the other is a training program, one that is broken down into pieces that can help district administrators and administrators of schools, for instance, principals and principals, excuse me. And then you have vice presidents and presidents or board members who are running community um, advocacy groups or community agencies. And then the bottom rung of that, which is not by any means the lowest level, that focuses on your student families. So the attention and the learning and the incentives that students will receive from it. So two pieces. One is a training portion, and then the other is the ideology or the construct in itself. So they form a
Mhm.
concentric bond, basically.
Wow, that's very interesting. And in terms of your study that you had to conduct, what, um, not what, I'm sorry, were you able to choose the participants in your study?
The participants were chosen more so on a categorical basis, meaning there were categories. I wanted to speak to the individuals who were the initiators of the program that went into the school system, as well as those who were responsible for implementing the program. I wanted to know exactly what the operational procedures were in having an outside organization approach a school district and ask, can
Mhm.
we put our program in your school, as opposed to the school district looking for a program that they thought would benefit their students and going outside of the school to find it. So I was able to stipulate, especially with the help of my committee chair members, we were able to stipulate the groups, the categories, but in terms of who would end up in those groups, I had no idea. And I focused on the adults and not the children. So those who were responsible for the implementation of the program, those who had leadership and accountability for the programs itself.
Oh, wow. Thank you. And in terms of the children, you are also the founder of LSN Kids. So you have a lot of experience with working with children, teaching, and I just wanted to know what what about the LSN Kids program contributed to your creation of K through 12 civil leadership,
That's
or
a
how
good
did it
question.
affect? Yeah, how did LSN Kids affect that?
Well, I guess LSN Kids was always a passion of mine. Just noting that children were able to get along with each other no matter what their cultural backgrounds were, and all of that was started with just one comment that was made one day in an educational forum that I attended as a new teacher back in I think 2007. And this one teacher was a veteran teacher, and she was having a very large issue she felt. She perceived it to be within herself. So she stood up at this educational forum and she said, you know, the problem I'm having is that this child keeps coming to my classroom every day and she doesn't know how to ask to go to the bathroom in English. And this was such a tremendous issue for this teacher. Like, she really felt as though there was no hope for this child, and she said, and I should not be responsible for having to teach her how to say I need to go to the bathroom in English. So immediately at that point I started to draw on my experiences and was very objective in my thinking. How was this teacher feeling? And then of course my first thought, and all of our first thoughts probably goes to the student, like, is it her fault? She's in the first grade that she doesn't know how to ask to go to the restroom in English. You know, some people would get upset. But the objective part of my brain was how to help the child to be taught differently. And in order for me to even conceptualize that, I needed to know what the teacher was really feeling. So in starting LSN Kids, the understanding behind that was to help students, to encourage them to understand culture, to give them a background in cultural intelligence so that they would be able to model in this area in the South where we live what it means to truly have a friendship with those who are from different socioeconomic backgrounds than they were, who were definitely from different cultures, and who had different ability levels. We had students who had extreme emotional distress that worked with us, and we were a very small knit group when we first started out, and ended up turning that wonderful program. As you know, Miss White, and thank you so much for being the chair of the board of
Yeah.
directors at this point now as we move forward, so many years forward. So put that entire background in the back of my mind, and then add on top of that a terrible experience which took me at becoming a pro se litigant all the way to the Supreme Court, trying to fight my way through this situation of racial insensitivity that I met in my school district. Add all of that together with the understanding of what it means to be a scholar and how to have an objective mindset, not just from my point of view, but every point of view that surrounds a situation. And that is where K-12 civil leadership came from. If it could be done with these students and the people in the community on a smaller level through a 501c3, it could definitely be instituted on a larger level, starting with large community organizations and educational institutions. And then the proof was in the pudding after doing the project, which was a mini dissertation, and then the real dissertation to show that people are out here doing this. They're doing it every day, combining partnerships, collaborating, and having great results. The end results, we have a group of students who are learning how to interact with each other positively, regardless of their cultural backgrounds. They become the next population of tomorrow to carry that forward. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's
Oh,
where it all
wow.
came from.
Yes. Thank you. And I also think that your experience and your extensive knowledge with cultural intelligence, bringing people together, regardless of the culture, will really help contribute to the K through 12 civil leadership initiative. I think that's really important.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
yes, you're welcome. And even though the research that you're conducting was with a specific group, do you feel like K through 12 will be beneficial to students of all ages?
Yes. I guess it was I was surprised when I actually got into the classroom. I tried to do a little bit of background work, and because the study was an exploratory case study, I did not need to know. In fact, I wanted to know as little as I could know in terms of the students, what their cultural makeup or their nationalities would be, their racial ethnic makeup. I didn't want to know what any of that was. So when I finally got into the school system, they ended up being a classroom full of single gender, racially ethnic males. And that was a surprise, because the research I had done up to that point, all of the conceptual framework, the theories and the studies that I did outside of culturally relevant pedagogy, which does focus on African American students, but also can be attributed to all students. In the beginning, all of the research I did was about, just students in general. And so the idea of K through 12 civil leadership as an initiative can work anywhere, because it's appealing to our human qualities, our human understanding, the psyche, the psychology of human behavior, as opposed to, well, this group acts like this because they're from this continent, and they act like this because they're from that continent. And, well, everyone's just going to act different, so we need to have different rules for everyone. Not so. Not so.
Thank you. It's very interesting.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yes. And what impact will the K through 12 Civil Leadership Initiative have on LSN Kids?
Well, I think that now that we are gearing or ramping back up to move in a forward motion with K-12 civil leadership, in December, we began our new site for that. It's been under construction for some months now, where we're going to be able to bring different groups together, different speakers, different writers to do blogs to kind of help branch out. We can now add in LSN Kids as a group that we are doing our best to promote, to inspire growth in, and we can bring these groups together, because LSN Kids has a specific mission to be able to teach these ideas of positive thinking, cultural intelligence, cultural awareness through world literacy and world language and cultural literacy as well, and the arts. And K through 12 civil leadership is teaching training to the individuals who are supposed to be here to guide and support children. So by combining or creating a partnership between these two groups, one can inevitably help the other. They both will grow from each other, just supporting one another, I believe.
It gives us a better understanding of exactly what the K through 12 Civil Leadership Initiative is. Thank you so much for explaining. And if anyone wants any more information about it, is there anywhere where they can go to get a little bit more information? The administrators would like to begin a process of getting it implemented into their schools. Where exactly should they go?
They should probably for now visit www.sanchoeducation.com, SANCHO education.com, and from there will be information that will lead you out to the K through 12 civil leadership site, and that will be a completely new experience with excellent foundational information from people of many different backgrounds, and then also how to get in contact with us so that implementation processes can begin, and also to pick up some of the ebooks that are going to be created. Actually, they will be done before, I think there are two that will be done before winter sets in at the end of December. So we're very excited about that.
Okay. Thank you again, Dr. Sancho, so much for joining us today and taking the time out of your busy schedule to discuss your K through 12 Civil Leadership Initiative. I know you are very busy and you're always working, so thanks again for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. White. Thank you for having me.